Our comparison series here at the Voice of College Football begins with a very appropriate matchup. The game, Ohio State and Michigan. If you have a comparison for us to make, coaches, players, teams, programs, whatever it is, leave your comments down below and we will break it down right here at the Voice of College Football. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe. All right, let's get to it. Ohio State in the Jim Harbaugh era has won the series over Michigan, but of course the Wolverines have bragging rights in duplicate right now. 2 consecutive wins in the game and 2 consecutive Big Ten championships. The lifeblood of these programs, any program in college football, especially at the top level, recruiting. We know Ohio State's been better than Michigan, but how much better? And in future episodes, we will dissect the recruiting advantage for Ohio State and what it's meant. Now let's look at the sheer numbers for the Buckeyes against the Wolverines. Ohio State's recruiting classes since Jim Harbaugh took over in 2015, numbers 742, 775, 244. You see the recruiting rankings as Ohio State has been elite. That averages out to a number 4 plus ranking for the Buckeyes. Michigan, on the other hand, has been up and down. Jim Harbaugh's first recruiting class took some time. Obviously, he was just taking over the program and had to try to save Brady Hoke's previous efforts at number 37. Then following that, they quickly improved to 7, 5, 22. And then basically top 10 classes in that range. And despite the college football playoff appearances and back-to-back Big Ten championships at number 12 and 19, not necessarily improving as much as you would think. Add it all up, and it's number 15 in the nation for Michigan overall during the Harbaugh era. Now on to the 5 stars, and we get much of the same results that you would expect between Ohio State and Michigan. Buckeyes at 26 5 stars to just 7 for Michigan. And again, in future videos, we will break down the booms and the busts and where these players rank and some of the nuances of these numbers. 4 stars, Buckeyes lead it. Not as heavily, but still a decided advantage at 130 to 103. And of course, all those 5 and 4 stars for the Buckeyes have been countered by many more 3 stars by Michigan. 99 to 48 as Michigan has signed 5 more players during this era, 209 to 204. Where are these players coming from? Well, we certainly know from past history that it was a narrative and it was reality that Michigan was building championship teams and beating Ohio State consistently in the 80s and 90s with Ohio players. Desmond Howard, Elvis Gerbach, Charles Woodson, and others. Not surprisingly, Ohio State has gained most of its talent across the roster. Not necessarily the best talent, but the most players signed during this 9-year period from the Buckeye State at 65. Michigan with 18 Ohioans signing for the Maize and Blue. Florida has been the second most productive state other than Ohio for the Buckeyes at 25. Michigan's right there at 25. Floridians as well. As you might expect, Texas has produced not just a good portion of Buckeyes at 14, but also some of the best on the roster. And Michigan has signed half of the number of Texans that Ohio State has. As we go down the number of players per state, you see that Georgia's been significant, especially for Michigan. Maryland, also a good high school football playing state. New Jersey traditionally has been strong. They have tapered off in recent years, but have still supplied Michigan with 14 players. There you see the state of Michigan showing up for the Buckeyes with just 6 in 9 years, but 37 for the state of Michigan. Ohio, a much better football playing state throughout the generations than Michigan. And despite that gap possibly closing between the level of high school play in Michigan versus Ohio, still the number of Big Ten caliber players that Ohio produces versus Michigan is heavy toward Ohio when you think about 65 Ohioans staying in state to play for the Buckeyes and only 37 for Michigan. On the flip side, Michigan's got 18 Buckeyes during this 9-year period and Ohio only 6, a third of that total. that they went across the border up north to grab and bring down to Columbus. There you see, as we will allow the rest of it to play out in regards to the number of players that have signed for these particular schools. Michigan's been stronger, at least in quantity, over Ohio State. In California, surprisingly, at 13-5. We know that Arizona high school football has improved considerably in recent years, and Ohio State has factored in there with 4 Arizona players, and Pennsylvania at 4-4, Michigan versus Ohio State. And on down the line, Colorado has been a destination for Michigan with 6 players signed. And Connecticut also, as Michigan has gone far more to the Northeast with 9 players signed, just 1 for the Buckeyes in the last recruiting class. And Massachusetts as well has been a place for Michigan to go and get players at 7. Ohio State has not gone to Massachusetts at all for any players. And Louisiana, one of the great football playing states in the South, has not supplied really anything there, just 1 player going to Michigan. Those are the overall numbers in regards to 3, 4, and 5 stars. What about the quarterback position, the most important position in football? Well, the Buckeyes have signed 2 5 stars to Michigan's 1. That, of course, J.J. McCarthy on the roster right now. 4 stars for the Buckeyes, 8, and they have not signed any 3 stars. So 10 quarterbacks signed during this 9-year period for Ohio State. They've all been 4 and 5 stars. Michigan has delved down into the 3-star category twice and also has 5 4-stars in signing 8 to Ohio State's 10 quarterbacks during this time. It's been fairly easy to see during the last 2 recruiting cycles that Michigan has been more active in the transfer portal and more successful. Ohio State has basically targeted who they have wanted more so than Michigan. Michigan has been more in the quote-unquote free agent market for players and has been extremely successful. Oluwatimi, of course, arguably the best center in the country, coming to Ann Arbor from Michigan, is the classic example. All right, that's our breakdown of Ohio State versus Michigan during the Jim Harbaugh era. Of course, the Buckeyes won the first 5 meetings, and Michigan has won the last 2. And the war continues to be waged. It's a new 10-year war, possibly between Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day, as Day got the first one, Harbaugh the last 2. Want your comments down in the comments section. And of course, as mentioned off the top, we are going to delve deeper into the recruiting comparison between Ohio State and Michigan, because it's obviously Buckeyes in terms of the metrics and the numbers and the rankings, but we'll delve a little bit deeper and see who has really taken off and where those busts lie for both squads in recent years. This is our comparison series here at the Voice of College Football. We are taking these by request. We're not staying just with Ohio State, Michigan. This is across the board. We are the Voice of College Football here. We take your comparisons, players, coaches, eras, programs, whatever you want. Leave your requests right here at the Voice of College Football.